Yeah! Yeah! Pinch some of these. Pinch some of these. Almost there and... done. Now let's see how it looks so far.
Uni's the boss.
Eunie, a nice, unique, bird-winged addition to the cast, with a personality that could not be more different from the previous Hyentia she resembles. A snide, loudmouth sniper healer soldier was not on my bingo card, but it's a treat nonetheless. She makes sure you know she's on screen every time, and comes with a nicely layered story as well. There are several themes that Eunie's story touches on, but the one we're going to focus on is... No, that one's for Mio. Agency and control. Just gotta pop the definition on screen here. Alright, we're ready to go. Eunie is socially assertive. She is snarky and seems to always want to have the last word or quip in a conversation.
Gonna ask you again. Can I give him a real slug? Man, way to go off on one. I mean, feathers are a bitch to dry.
I wouldn't say she wants to dominate, but she always wants to participate. She always wants to show agency, show that she is actively doing things. However, agency isn't given to the soldiers of Ionios. They are stuck in a never-ending war of Keves versus Agnes, with no real other options, no real control over their lives. Sure, you can pick whether you want to be a mechanic, a frontliner, a manager, but it's all for the same end goal. All the soldiers believe that they are progressing towards something, towards bringing glory to their side, and more importantly, ending the war and staying alive. That, above all, has been Eunie's goal throughout her life, to day by day keep fighting and keep her friends and herself alive. She believes she's making progress towards that happy ending with each passing day. But then she becomes Ouroboros and realizes she was just on a treadmill. In becoming Ouroboros and better understanding the world, Eunie learns that her own self wasn't really under her control. Everything is instead under the control of Moebius. Moebius have staged this facade of a war to keep draining life out of soldiers. Moebius want to keep in place an endless now, where everything stays stagnant. There is no progress, and there are no actions that can change that. Moebius first display their power by literally mind-controlling people, hijacking the individual thought and agency of all soldiers. But Eunie and co. are immune to that mind control and can break others out of it. Their agency is not disrupted, and they progress forward towards the vague goal of reaching Big Sword, if only the path were that easy. Walking through a desolated battlefield, Eunie finds this pretty little number. A Husk, or in better terms, a corpse. She inspects the Husk's dog tag and...
What is this? Why is my name on here?
Eunie feels the rush of visions through her head. Visions where she watches an entire army of Kevesi soldiers get tossed around like rag dolls while the entire colony burns in the background. Eunie stands alone in the wreckage of her colony and is eye to eye with the Moebius Mutter, who takes his final kill of the day, perhaps leading to the Husk in front of Eunie back in reality. Those memories are a pretty heavy hitter to digest, and very confusing ones for Eunie. Soldiers are told they were born in the castle pods, they fight, they die, and turn into motes. But there are now two things, the physical Husk and the mental memories, that show Eunie that may not be the way things are. The world is still a big ol' mystery. Even with some knowledge of Ouroboros and Moebius, Eunie and the gang still don't know plenty of things about the world. And that, along with the vision, creates a deep sense of fear in Eunie. Fear that not only is there still a lot of wool over everyone's eyes, but fear of death. That sounds horrifically obvious, but just hear me out for a bit. It's one thing to go out onto a battlefield or off-seeing platform and expect death. It's a whole other thing to see your own demise, and further know that whatever killed you is still out there, and still has the objective of getting you dead. It's a very real possibility that these 6 goobers don't beat Moebius, that they end up however the previous Eggs Vandom got went. The squad has fewer Moebius kills right now than A and Matthew had in the first 10 minutes they were on screen. That fact can definitely start to weigh in, that even as Ouroboros, Eunie may still lose and die all the same. She keeps that anxiety to herself, and I believe that comes down to how she views agency and control. Alright, welcome to the desk. Why are we on the desk? I don't know. Anyway, we can sort humans into a few different bins when it comes to control and agency. The first one, you can be independent. You can look out for yourself. You don't need the support of others. You're your own little self there. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you of course have being dependent, where you do need the support of others, whether that be financial, emotional, social, whatever. You can't do it by yourself. You need the help of someone else. Society really pushes the idea that you have to be independent, that you gotta do everything yourself, you gotta liberate yourself from whatever is holding you down, find the greater sense of self that comes with independence. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. However, society shouldn't really be striving for this, because as you can tell by this auspicious blank space on the board, there's another bit, and that is interdependent, where you instead have a community for support. The RPG standard, where everyone in the party does kind of their own thing, and if you ever can't do something by yourself, you reach out to others who can help you out. Ideally, we should want to be here. We can't do literally everything on our own. We do need other people. However, instead, we really just decide that we definitely do not want to be here. We really don't like the idea of other people having control over what we can and can't do, stuff like that, right? So enter Eunie.
This is a work of art.
Eunie starts being pretty dependent, right? Because she's under the control of Moebius, the world's a mystery. It is then when she finds out that she has been dependent her entire life on other people that she starts to slowly wane and go all the way towards just independence. She overcorrects. We've talked about independence a lot for other characters, but I feel like the way Eunie comes about it is unique. She's doing it to really get as far away as she can from being dependent, because that's what she was for a vast majority of her life. Again, there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to be independent. But this is an RPG. There's 6 people in the party. You gotta be interdependent. Healer can't do literally everything. You need other people. And Eunie's overcorrection into independence to get away from the Moebius control is an issue. Eunie's overcorrection into independence causes her to feel like she only has herself sometimes. Causes her to not talk about those visions or her own Husk. And to steadily inch her towards interdependence, the community itself has to be there. The obstacle is that Eunie and Taion get along the worst of the 3 duos off the bat. They are opposites. One feels and one thinks. One wants to assert themselves in every situation. One wants to observe how things play out. One cannot build that interdependence without trust. I'm sure that Eunie trusts Noah and Lance, but they're embroiled in their own shit. So you're left with 4 eyes, Miss Featherhead. You two gotta make nice, okay? It starts rough, but the two start to warm up to each other by stacking those more positive interactions and incrementally working their way up. And one of my favorite comes the night after Eunie sees her Husk. Taion notices Eunie's unease and shaking, and he decides to quell them with a nice cup of herbal tea. Through Taion's own monologue, Eunie can see that her fears are shared by others. The fear of your life coming to an end on any given day. Even someone as composed and logic-based as Taion has those worries. It seems like a very obvious thing, like everyone fears death, but to hear it out loud can be reassuring for Eunie. The duo pontificate on what people feel in their dying moments. Eunie specifically says,
I'd really hope it's not fear.
Perhaps for those being sent away in motes during their off-seeing ceremony, there is no fear. But if one stares down the barrel of an ether cannon, or the dagger of a Moebius, what else is there but fear? Going deeper into Taion's monologue, he talks about the unease of not knowing if he'll see the same faces when he wakes up, and if he'll wake up at all. It's a nice showing by him to comfort his companion, but to Eunie these words can now mean something completely different because of the Husk. If there was some past life that she's now getting visions of, there are a lot of faces that she no longer knows, much less sees. Either way, conversation is the first step of actually getting trust between these two, even if they are not exactly in the same headspace. And let's test that trust with the Collider fight, where Eunie can now properly pinpoint that Moebius from her visions as Moebius D. Hearing that D will kill her no matter how many times their paths cross is a chilling thing to hear. It is certainly difficult for Eunie to overcome that trauma of D burning everything down and shredding everything to bits in the past. She is paralyzed by that fear of both death and predetermined death. That she can do nothing about a nice hot Moebius blade running right through her skull, just like last time and just as it will be. That it's already decided, and even as Ouroboros, she still has no agency or opportunity to make things different. And she's right, if she was alone. And at the start of the encounter, she is. She does the same, trying to brush aside the issue and not talk about that anxiety and dread, and as I expect most people to do. So throughout this fight, Eunie is frazzled and horribly unfocused. There's poor decision-making, spotty accuracy, freezing under duress, horrid footwork, and oh wait, this is just Zach Wilson tape. Taion is able to take control long enough for Eunie to settle down, and the duo devise a beautiful little bait-and-switch tactic, also involving these nice little combos where Taion's illusions work off Eunie's feather projectiles. We're working away from independence and towards interdependence, where as an Ouroboros pair, they each have their own unique set of skills that can work together to be better than the sum of their parts. About having someone there to support Eunie when she's racked with fear. Taion may be more pushy when they're battling for their lives, but it's support all the same. In her past life, Eunie is alone, the last survivor, but now she has more. She has Taion, and more than just Taion, she has 5 friends walking to the end of the endless now alongside her. Although the Collider platform collapsing does mean she can't finish off DJ and get some closure. Just play by the rules of the trope, and D will be back. In the meantime, the gang finally reaches Big Sword, and learns about the entire picture of Ionios. This enhanced perspective puts Eunie into further unease. She gets confirmation that until you get an off-seeing, you are in the cycle of life forever. Her vision is real. She sneaks out in the night to the pod room and just thinks about the revelation that she did in fact see her own corpse, and thinks about whether she's going to end up the same way. Leader of the city, Monica, enters, picks up on the situation pretty quickly, and encourages Eunie to discard that past, to understand that the Husk is not her, to look towards the present and future, and forge that future into whatever Eunie wants it to be. The future is something Eunie is very much afraid of because of that past. She is unwilling to really let the past go and forge ahead into the future, because the future could hold the same end result. At face value, Eunie could have disregarded Monica's advice. Monica is outside the rebirth life cycle right now. She couldn't possibly relate to the situation, to seeing her own corpse. But the past isn't solely restricted to odd, disassociated lifespans. Monica is for sure able to recall a whole lot more of her past than Eunie, because she's lived more than 10 years. A lot more. I doubt Monica's past is all too rosy. And Monica is in a worse situation than Eunie in this regard. The mistakes Monica has made in her past have had actual consequences that she's had to witness. Eunie acknowledges Monica's advice because of that experience that has been accumulated through years of rough battles, house power struggles, and no doubt wrong decisions. Monica has learned from these past events, and that's what being a leader is about. Taking responsibility for missteps and ensuring that the next steps will be better. She adapts, she overcomes, and she makes sure she calls her own shots, just like Eunie must learn to do. And it's time to figure out a bit more of that past as we shift over to the side story. The gang gets called out to a colony that's been off the communication grid for a while after reaching Gold Rank, the top of the colony ranking system that you get if you're very good at killing people. Eunie is eager to investigate since an entire colony getting wiped out should sound familiar. She wants to figure out what happened to hopefully shed some light on those flashing memories of her past life. Lo and behold, almost the entire present-day colony was obliterated by a Moebius attack, which should now sound very familiar. The colony had, as mentioned, reached gold rank, a rank at which the colony is told they don't have to fight anymore. But instead, gold rank just means that the Moebius come down for the harvest, TM, and destroy it. This is treated like some big reveal, but surely someone had to have thought about this for more than 2 seconds. The entire world is about this war. The war that any individual can see hasn't ended in their 10-year term. You really think they would just let the most competent soldiers not fight? No one thought maybe it was a lie. No one. None of you 35 TP brains figured this shit out. The side story highlights how in every facet of an Agnian's or Kavesi's life, it is Moebius calling the shots. It is not the individual. Moebius are the ones in control, and they love it. They love being this greater power in the world and playing little games with lives and cackling through the flames of destruction. The entire existence of the Endless Now and Moebius takes away true agency from the players. Agency is something Yuni really desires and hence takes high issue with being deceived on yet another level with the ranking system. She and every other soldier make the choice to go out and fight the war because that's all there is. That is all Moebius have put in front of them. And they are told on top of that that if they're good enough, they can stop fighting. That does make X saying the soldiers have killing in their blood a bit contradictory. If they want to kill by nature, then why did you give them the incentive to eventually not have to kill? It's not adding up. There's also some stuff about fear in the resolution. Hey, wheel don't lie, so we're just gonna move on past son of a... Taion chimes in that they all still feel fear moment to moment. That even after all the tribulations they've been through, after all the Moebius scum they've gone through, fear will still bubble up. No amount of Ouroboros power changes that they are still human. Humans are meant to feel sad, scared, anxious. So have our 6 heroes steeled themselves up from all negative emotions? Of course not. Fearing death is entirely appropriate because death is the ultimate negative. We talk all about agency and carving out these different paths based on your decisions and using your own decisions. That all means nothing if the Reaper comes for you. The entire decision tree of branches and interlaid out paths all evaporates. It is the ultimate downside to any decision that someone will make. And yet, our heroes are willing to make that trade-off. And that can make your characters a lot more endearing. That they're not just ironclad heroes ready to take on whatever adversaries against them for the greater good of the world. That they still feel fear from their position as savior.
Tornans are braver than you think, Malos. Nobody here is scared of you.
I'll take bold-faced lies for 600, Alex. That they are humanized in a more appropriate way that we can relate to, and make it so that the hero is not just looking at a physical opponent in the ring, but also a mental opponent in their head. Alright, we good? I'll get the Loctite, I'll get it. Back to our main focus of attention. At the end of the day, the side story shows that control matters to Yuni, that this whole realization of the world order is at the core of her conflict. The realization that she has no control and there could be even more ways Moebius are controlling her that she doesn't know. And if even still there are things she doesn't know about, what's stopping her from ending up like the Husk she found by the battlefield? Well, as we move over to the Cloudkeep fight, Moebius D, aka Dirk, is back and ready to give Uni's Husk a nice identical twin. The Cloudkeep fight allows us to properly get to know Dirk. And before we really get into it, let me just say, every game can use a villain like Dirk. Just a sicko. There's barely any questions to be asked. There's no redeeming facets. He's just a villain, and a villain that is fun to have on screen. That is theatrical in their misdirected mania. That feels cathartic to beat the living shit out of. As Yorin fades back, Dirk takes his moment in the spotlight. Dirk reveals that becoming Moebius grants him access to all of his memories. He's able to recount his past lives, where he murdered tons of enemies and tons of allies, in seemingly very gruesome ways, and kept trinkets of the people he killed. A lot of Ionian soldiers would choose not to fight if they could help it. Not past Dirk. To other soldiers, this war would be a stranglehold on their ability to choose. But Soldier Dirk actively chooses to make killing his everything. He takes the predetermined occupation Moebius have thrust upon him and makes it worse. He shows that Moebius aren't holding perfect angel soldiers against their will with the war. Some of them are active participants, and maybe all of them have a little freak inside just like Dirk. And now Dirk gets to remember how much of a freak he was. Dirk sees his regained memory as a sort of liberation, that he has regained his sense of self and has continued to go about getting these trinkets from his victims. And I like that Dirk has these physical items from his past. He is but a passenger in the endless now, and having these physical pointers to his memory can mean he can continue to relate and contain his past. He can see who he killed yesterday, who he killed 5 years ago, who he killed 500 years ago. His mental state can deteriorate however it will in the coming millennia, but he will always have something to remind him of who he was. He is free to continue his life with his past in tow. On the contrary, Eunie's own flash of memory is no liberation. She doesn't have the whole picture. There is no connection or idea of who she was. She can only connect with that past self through the only thing she knows about them: death, and getting stabbed through the eye by the same vile creature. Eunie's liberation will only come when she lets go of the past, when she understands that the present is in her hands, that she is fully in control now, regardless of everything going on around her, that she doesn't have to retain or strive for the past if it's undesirable. The future can be different. And it's an important realization for her to make in this moment. She's much better in the face of DJ this time around. However, this is for Yoren, and he's gonna pull his shit, and we're gonna move on. Eunie's battle with her past can also be contrasted with similar themes in Xenoblade 2. In that game, Brigid desires to connect her previous lives and understand her past. Brigid wants that sense of continuity, wants the greater sense of self that comes from knowing who she was 500 years ago. So, she has a diary that is maintained by Ardanian nobility along with her core crystal. However, as Brigid seeks to connect and learn from her past selves, there is one thing she can never write in her diary: death. If her driver falls, Brigid returns to her core with no opportunity to record the encounter before she forgets it. She can maybe hear about it afterwards, but it pales in comparison to the flashing images of your own demise. Brigid's past is perhaps more enticing for her to learn about, because the greatest morbid detail is excluded. Though, even knowing her endless cycle of rebirth, I'd wager Brigid still fears death the same way Eunie does, that in death, she loses her thoughts, her memories, and a piece of herself. No physical remanifestation or diary can completely cure that. As such, she wants to overcome death. She wants to relate to her past selves and hold on to that past as a whole. Eunie, on the other hand, demonstrates how the past can hold one back. She comes to understand that the past self isn't her, that she is now her own person, free to make choices that put her on whatever path she wants. She is still curious about that past self the same way Brigid is. I'd expect anyone to be curious if they found out reincarnation was real, but it's not chaining her down. She's not rushing for confirmations or clarifications. She's on a new path, and that path doesn't have to have all the same things as before.
Some things are different sometimes.
Hey, Taion, she's talking about you, buddy. That whole interdependent stuff and working together, she's talking about you. You're what's different.
'Cause this time round, we're Ouroboros.
Okay, well, technically, right. But let's wrap up with that one. I'm sure to Eunie, her agency came from that burst of Ouroboros energy. She was able to take control of her life away from Moebius because she was fortunate enough to get outside of the system. Sure, I can see that. But she's also wrong. This agency doesn't need to come at the life-changing crack of a stone. Look at characters like Xeon, like Fiona, those who didn't have the opportunity to become Ouroboros, who cannot be the main character. Against the literal embodiment of the fucking world, they all make the choice to help. They choose to change their circumstance even if they are not incredibly gifted, to focus on their colony and chip in however they can. They don't complain or lament at how impossible the task seems. They choose to see it through. They don't have to be special or the most important to contribute. They take control and they become a support system that the heroes can rely on when the time is right. And there's one line I really like to point back to for how Eunie relates to Ionios as a whole. During the side story, after killing a Moebius, Eunie specifically says,
But I'll tell you one thing. I ain't doing this because I like it.
Killing even the bad guys isn't necessarily what Eunie wants. If she could pick another role in the story, if soldier wasn't the only occupation, she'd maybe take it. So here we see Eunie has been ceding some of that control over her life, that even if she doesn't want to, she goes forward as a hero against Moebius, killing whatever Moebius scum she can, so that eventually she and Xeon and Fiona can have proper agency, a feat that cannot exist with Moebius and the Endless Now. When making her decisions, Eunie doesn't have perfect information on what will happen. That uncertainty can make the future hard to confront, difficult to walk towards. It paralyzes her. Maybe she shouldn't act because of fear or intimidation of what might happen next. That her past results mean the future results won't be much better. But Eunie can't know that until she acts, until she realizes that the past has no bearing on her future.
Looking back all the time never helped nobody. Yippee!
Eunie is even able to give Monica's advice back to her. Even great leader Monica hasn't properly adapted her own mindset of just looking towards the future, because she herself only looks so far. She only looks so far until the war ends, until Moebius is no more, and then who knows what comes after that, in Monica's eyes. And I don't really blame her for it. Her entire family line has been all about this one task. Anytime she spends worrying about other things is time not spent on that task, is a 0.1% chance that Moebius wins. She does kind of see the long term when it comes to her family, but when it comes to city affairs, it is all about beating Moebius. And when it comes to the way she even handles herself and her relationships, it is just about beating Moebius. Monica is not looking far enough down to who she wants to be. She knows who she wants to be in the war. She doesn't know what she wants to be after that, and needs a little prodding from Eunie to see that much further into the future. And now as we go back to Eunie, the only thing she needs to focus on are her next steps in the present, and how those steps will eventually reach her long-term goals. She will encounter some unpleasantness along the way, do some things she perhaps doesn't want to, but she is the one in control, building her future brick by brick. And when the next brick needs to be placed a bit too high up, she has friends to lend her a hand, and perhaps a ladder. She will be proactive and make sure the life she leads is her best.
Both best, to be exact.